All right, welcome back. Got me?
Yep.
Okay, welcome back. So I guess 45 minutes just wasn't enough. So I was trying to rush that really, really hard because I was looking at the clock. I'm like, crap, we only have 15 minutes left. Spent too much time on the things that I was trying to avoid a little bit, which is the sort of age of the earth. So obviously, I mean, just the basis of the thing itself. Obviously, we disagree on the age of the earth. Evolution requires 4 billion years. Now, God does not require any set amount of time. He could go anywhere between 1 day and 1 trillion days. It doesn't really matter. But the point of this is that the gospel, which is God created man, perfect. Man fell in the Garden of Eden. He was kicked out of the garden. And from the beginning, where it says the serpent shall strike her heel and she shall crush the serpent's head, referring to what Jesus did in the new, that as described in the New Testament. And I mentioned the gospel in the last one. The gospel is God came down to earth, born of a virgin, which means he bypassed the sin seed, which is passed through the man. We don't have to get into that, but that he was born of a virgin. He grew up maybe 30 or so years. It's an estimate. Nobody knows how old he was. He spent 3 years of ministry. He was tried under Pontius Pilate, crucified on a cross between two thieves, died, buried in an unused cave, or what they would say a tomb. He was raised again on the third day, and spent 40 more days with his people, and then went off to heaven, and he'll return someday. So that's the kind of basic gospel message, right?
Sure.
Okay. So all right, let's get into that then. So again, we kind of talked about Yom and Exodus and all that. We got a little much into that, but the chief argument here is, why does God care about man, right? Why did God save man? I mean, in college, we read one of C.S. Lewis, his Planetary books. I don't know if you probably read one of those, right? Where you have like a man from Earth goes off to another planet, and the planet has not yet fallen, and you have Satan working in the planet trying to corrupt the people there. Did you read any of those?
No.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. It's it's just a book. It's a book on what would happen, what might happen if you had a new creation. Like, you get the whole creation scenario over again. So you have people on another planet. They're perfect. They're without sin, and Satan tries to make them fall as well. So, anyways, so we're getting into the idea that, again, why the gospel? Why? Under evolutionary standard, why did God bother? Why did he, first of all, you could say, why did he take 4 billion years or something? Why didn't he just he created everything out of nothing? You said that things were already there.
I said that's one of the statements.
Okay. So I talked quite a bit, so I'll let you go ahead then, since we're just going to limit this, by the way, to 30 minutes, right? So
That's
we'll
fine.
say like somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes left. We'll do final statements at 20 minutes left or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So here's some things that I have a problem with, right? I don't understand why we can't have evolution, and God did evolution, allowed some mutations, and that God was ultimately behind bringing in man, right? I just don't understand why that's against the Bible. Nowhere in the Bible does it state that that never happened. Because you can't look at Genesis as like an absolute, right? Because it was written as a very fanciful way to explain something, right? So we could take a Jungian perspective to this, right? That he's giving archetypes and things of this nature to explain complex ideas that God gave to man. Is God going to explain to this early age to man all of this? No, he doesn't need to. This is something man has to figure out for himself.
Okay, but do you have scriptural verses to back? Because again, we're talking about a debate over Christianity, right? So I think the Bible is a perfectly valid book to look into for this specific debate, right? Would you agree?
But there's nothing in the inverse. There's nothing that states that my position is wrong.
Well, again, I say Colossians 1:15, where it says, "For in him were all things created, and that in heaven and that are on in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions, principalities, all power, all things were created in him and by him. For nothing was made that is made." Right? John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So he's validating Genesis 1:1 right there, right?
No.
And the Word was with God, the same as in the beginning. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. And these are two different people that wrote these books, right? Paul wrote Colossians, and John wrote the Gospel of John, John. The light shines in darkness, and the darkness comprehended not, etc. Said, man was sent from God, whose name, here I am, John. Right. And then John 14, he skips down, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And that's a validation of Jesus coming down as God, right? The Word in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word was made flesh. So God became a man to save men, right? So in the Genesis, you have the lamb, sacrifice of the lamb, and then you have the sacrifice of the lamb in the New Testament. So find me a single scripture that validates your point of evolution in any manner at all.
I'm still waiting for you to give me.
I just said God created everything.
No.
In him was nothing made that was made.
Stop.
And I just mentioned a bunch of them. So go ahead.
None of what you just said had anything to do with the statement, right? That God did not use evolution, right? You just said that God created things. I'm not attacking that point. What I'm saying is that God used evolution. God used universal mechanisms to create the universe, right?
Let me say, Paul refers to the first man, right? Jesus is the second man.
Yeah.
Okay, so refute that. I've just provided you a variety of verses that refer to God making everything ex nihilo, out of nothing.
No.
And you're saying that God just took what was there.
No.
I
said that that's a Gnostic view of it. I never said that that's what I believed. I said that's a Gnostic view of it. That's why Irenaeus. Hold on, stop. Right. So that's why Irenaeus had to put so much work into his to explain. So if you don't know who Irenaeus is, he was around 300. So when you say that the Gnostic texts and the Gnostic verses were after that, so Irenaeus wrote against Herod in 130 AD to 202 AD, and his entire attack was on Gnosticism. So to say that Gnosticism is not an extremely old version of the Bible, it's ridiculous. And to say that the Roman Catholic Church came about after Constantine is another ridiculous claim, right? So he was a bishop.
Well,
are
you talking about the Roman Catholic Church was Constantine, right? You have the Catholic as a universal, the universal church, so there's two different meanings of Catholic, small c and big C, right?
We don't have to discuss that. I know that, but I'm talking about, so he was a Roman at the time of 130 AD in Turkey, right? So he's part of the Roman Empire. He was an early church father and apologist, and his writings were formative in early development of Christian theology in 130 AD to 202 AD. And he's considered, really, he was a bishop in Lungren and Gaul. What was he a bishop of? Nothing? No. What Constantine did was take all these bishops that were like Irenaeus, that were followers of Paul, and brought them all together to hash out what was the exact book and what were the exact traditions that they were going to use. And that's the Roman Catholic Church. But for the most part, everything that the Paulites wanted was put into the church, mainly through Irenaeus and his writings in apologetics and Christian theology. That being said, so a lot of his work was done specifically on attacking the Gnostic basis for Christianity, right? Of the demiurge, and then God, and then Jesus is the second coming of God, the real God, not the demiurge, who had shaped the universe but is not the creator. right?
Right. There was a lot of different things being, and in fact, Paul wrote some of his letters specifically himself, which would have been, what was Paul? Paul was in the first century because he wrote, if he wrote before the 72 invasion, right? It was 70 AD invasion by Romans where they destroyed the temple. So he himself wrote a number of letters to the churches, refuting some of the Gnostic ideas that were starting to spread as well. But there's nothing new about the Gnostic ideas. They're around long before that.
Yeah, they were there before Jesus.
Yeah, long before. So there's all kinds of ideas. Some of the Catholic ideas are there long before, and we're not going to get into that, so it doesn't matter.
But no, it
to this specific point.
Okay, because it does matter, because that was one of the frames of references I was giving as to one of the statements about Kalam's cosmological argument about there being stuff before, and how that disproves the idea that you can't create something from nothing, right? So the Gnostics do not agree with that you can create something from nothing. All right, so now we'll go back to, again, what is evolution, right? So evolution states that we came from animals into being, right? Now, what it states is that God laid this plan out so that...
You still there?
Yeah, that was really loud. So
okay.
God laid a plan out to come to the point that we are now. So let's think of it this way, like, so the anti-science mentality of like Catholic creationists, right?
Well, it's not anti-science. There's science on both sides.
No, there's no.
There's a vast array. So look, we're not going to get into that, but there is a lot of science. You should really look at it. So let me just say it's there. Just try it out. So go ahead.
So you deplete the word science. I mean, you do this in the.
Well, what is science? Okay. Yeah. What is science? So there's a scientific method, right?
What is science? Let's see. The intellectual and practical.
Well, look, I don't want to get. We don't have a lot of time. We only have like less than 15 minutes.
Right. So
we'll debate science.
Right. So it's anti-science, right? So all of science.
No, wrong.
There's a vast majority of science that states that the Earth is very old. That we have dinosaurs. So where did all these dinosaurs come from, right? That we have Job.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying that's one example, but go ahead.
What does Job have to do with dinosaurs?
He talks about what you could say as a dinosaur today. There's also lots of writings of thousands of years ago of people slaying dinosaurs, what you would say as a dinosaur today. Nobody really knows what a dinosaur is, by the way. You've got all these drawings. All they do is find bones in piles, and they put them together like puzzles, and then they draw skin on them. It's kind of like they found one tooth, right? One tooth, and they created a missing link out of it. Years and years and years, and that was on the front page. Years and years later, they found, it's actually an extinct pig's tooth. They actually made a wife. They took this one tooth. They created a whole man out of it, a missing link, and they actually made his wife. And then later on, they found out it was a pig's tooth. It was just a big fraud. Lucy is a big fraud. They recently just discovered that one of the vertebrae they put in Lucy is also a ape. It's an actual ape's vertebrae. It's not supposed to be in there. So anyways, go ahead. I'm just saying that the vast array of science is not necessarily true, and whatever a majority believes, who cares what a majority believes? So.
Okay, so Lucy, arguably the most famous early human fossil, blah, 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 is not what she is. So here's the thing. One wrong bone in a fossil and whammo, it's all over. But, that's just one thing that's going to bother me. If this one bone
it disproves the entire basis, is what I'm saying.
No, it doesn't. If this one bone is so devastating to the theory of evolution, why do scientists announce that it happened when they have just hushed up about it? Right? One bone.
They didn't announce it. You didn't hear about it.
Oh, well, how the hell did you find out about it? Did you go into the archives?
You know how old Lucy is? Lucy was back in Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is one. They named it after that song. Right. And it was just recently. Piltdown Man, big fraud. right?
Yeah.
Evolution frauds. Just look up evolutionary frauds and myths. So there's dozens of major front page news, and then 10 years later they go, oh, it's a big hoax. So I was saying that a lot of that
So you're saying it's a hoax, or that it's something that was done incorrectly?
It's a combination. Oh, well, actually, no. I think it was Piltdown Man is an actual fraud. A guy took a tooth. He knew it was not a human's tooth, but he was about to run out of money, and he needed more money, and so he built an entire species almost out of this tooth that he found, and he just totally faked the whole thing. Big fraud. I would consider it also a hoax on mankind, but either way. So okay, so we're getting too much into the science portion. I say there is a vast array of scientific evidence for 6 days. You say no. Boom. End of that, right? So I just want to get into the Christianity, the gospel, right? Why the gospel? Because again, we're talking about Christianity. We're not talking about, is evolution true? Is it what? I'm saying if evolution is true, then I'm going to go burn my Bible, okay? Because there's no point. There's no point in the Bible. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Right? That's what Paul said.
Okay.
I'm just wasting my time. I'm completely wasting Sundays. I'm wasting all this time because evolution provides no basis for morality. It provides no basis for reason, for logic, for what we're doing here. I mean, there's really no point. And most of all, it provides no basis for God becoming a man and dying for his creation. Not his entire creation, but one specific aspect of his creation. Like mankind, as David said in Psalms, why do you look upon man with such, why is man special? I couldn't find the specific Psalms in a hurry, but, I did say Matthew 6:26 is, God says a sparrow falls. I know about it. Aren't you more special than a sparrow? I know what you need, right? Lilies of the fields are clothed, but I know of your needs. I care for. He never says, I specifically take care of apes. I take care of birds. I really care for them more than anything. No, he says I care for man more than anything else. And from a biblical basis, I claim that that's because God created man in his image, which means he provided him with aspects of God, love, reason, logic, thought, and gave him dominion over the earth, right? He created him special. One entire day he spent creating, not spent, but he created man, right? That's all he did that one day, 6th day. Now we talk about the numbers, 6, 6, 6, 6, the number of man, it's yada, yada. Don't get into that, but
555 is the number of man. 666 is the number of beast. 777 is the number of God.
Yes, 6 is the number of man. 666 it's the number of the beast. But because 6 is the number of man, 6 is man's number that he was created on the 6th day. 7 represents completion and perfection. So multiples of 7 often, right? Numbers in the Bible mean things, right? You would agree with that?
No.
40 days in the desert, 40 days in the ark, 40 days of rain, right? They spent 2 years in the ark, but 40 days of rain, 40 days in the desert. These are just random numbers that come out of nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the vast number of scholars. No.
I doubt
I say
that.
God does not play dice. So I'll just quote Einstein there, right?
Well, that's an odd quote considering he didn't believe in God, but yeah.
Well, actually, Einstein believes in God. He believed in God.
No, he didn't.
He just wasn't a Christian. He believed in God.
No, he didn't.
Well, okay. Anyways, onward. Right. So again, I would say, at what point did man become morally responsible when the ape is not morally responsible? Because you're talking about a long transition, right? Where are these missing links? We won't get into that. But at what point during this transition did God say, that right there? And why is man not evolving further into another creature? Maybe man's evolving into a higher species.
We are.
Right? We only have a few thousand years. Okay, so then that doesn't that just disprove Christianity right there? If man is continuing to evolve into a higher level species, why did God become a man? Why didn't he wait until man got to a higher level?
Because God. So when Jesus came to the earth, right, there are specific reasons as to when and why Jesus would come to the earth. So we can state that Jesus
it says right here.
He said he was going to come to earth to make a grand change, right? So since Jesus, we've had the technological revolution.
Not a change, no. But go ahead.
So you don't think we've changed at all?
No. man's nature has not changed since the beginning, since the fall. But go ahead.
I was
Technological revolution was the 1800s, but it was
really. So you're saying that 2008, that fucking 0 AD was what, the Stone Age?
Didn't exist, but it didn't exist, but but it's a non-existent point in time, right? But yes, and Jesus was born about 4 BC, 4 to 5 BC, probably. But no, I mean, it's not like in that first couple hundred years we had no technological change of any significance up until around the 1700s.
That's ridiculous.
Just look at incomes. Incomes were unchanged around the world. It's $3 a day for almost all of time, right? Just absolute poverty. And then you had the technological revolution of the 18 and 1900s. But I'm saying, but what does that matter? I mean, technological change, I don't see why that relates to the gospel. Like, God didn't say he'd come to change. He said he came to save, right? John 3:16. I came not to, and 17, come not to condemn the world, but to save the world, not to make the world smarter or anything. Man was no better off when Jesus died than when he was alive, right? In the physical world. God changed. I mean, Jesus came to save us spiritually, right? He cares about our physical needs, but that's not the point, right? And again, I'm talking about specifically Christianity.
So, Jesus Christ, this is really ridiculous. So,
who is Jesus Christ?
So, the Jewish prophecy that suggests that Jesus is coming, right? There is some statements that are made that says there will be freedom and peace, and that there will be a decree to rebuild the Jerusalem temple, and that there will come the Messianic age for the world to come, and the world will be better, right? So that's from the Talmud, and that's from the Torah.
So would you say the 20th century was the most peaceful century of all time?
No, I would,
because reality says the exact opposite, right? It's the most bloody, destructive century in history.
Right, but that has more to do with nihilism and
okay, but doesn't that just refute your entire point? God didn't actually change mankind. Man's nature of selfishness and destruction has not changed at all.
Well,
God changed you within, right?
Well, that's probably a good point for a Jew, but not necessarily one that I would have to agree with. So if I was a Jew, I would state that, yeah, Jesus Christ doesn't exist because of what you just stated. But I don't have to actually agree with that because I've seen a growth in population. I've seen a growth in technology. There was a huge growth in technology. There was a huge growth in agrarian societies moving into civilizations across the world. There was a definite increase in mathematics, which led to the technological revolution. There was a definite increase in education to the masses. There was a definite increase in morality to the world when Jesus Christ came. So, of course, there's been these giant and vast improvements. You talk about the technological revolution, but, that's just one of the technological. That's the industrial revolution. We're talking about technological revolutions. We get to the Stone Age, to the Brass Age, to the Steel Age, right? We have these.
All those were before Christ, right?
The Steel Age was before Christ.
Well, I'm saying most of those were saved. But what about the pyramids? They can't even build the pyramids these days. So maybe they were more technologically advanced before the flood.
We can build.
I don't know
these days.
No, they can't.
Yeah, they can.
No, the blocks are too heavy. They don't know how they built them. They definitely don't know how they built them then. A lot of these things, they can't figure out how they built them today. Yeah. Some of these things that they've built thousands of years ago. But technological advancement has advanced. It's gone increasingly, and actually Revelation talks about that. But that says in the last days, which, the end times actually, not last days, but there's two different terms. But technological advancement did not exist in the first few centuries. I mean, there was no significant technological advancement between, say, 30 AD and 800 AD, right? And some mathematical advancements, but we're talking about small changes. Again, I talk about the change in anybody's life, very minimal. Up until the Industrial Revolution, that's when all the real technology existed or occurred, right?
I disagree with that. I think moving from the Stone Age to the Copper Age, the Brass Age to the Steel Age, I think all of those made vast improvements on the life.
And what was the result of that? More death, right?
Yeah,
the gun was in, black powder was discovered.
But more life.
Black powder was discovered. No, we have more death, right? More people killed during war. More people in the 20th century. Again, this is Nietzsche, right? Nietzsche predicted the 20th century. You agreed with that his philosophy was the greatest influence. You could say influence, but he really predicted the 20th century, the greatest amount of death. More people died from their own government because of like I said, nihilism and all these other terrible things that existed in the 20th century than all the wars combined down through history. Right? So you have more death, more destruction. I see a devolution of humanity. And I would actually declare a devolution of humanity since the beginning, that intelligence has been actual intelligence. Yes, knowledge has been increasing, specifically over the last 200 years, but actual intelligence, I think the founding fathers were much more intelligent than some of your brightest people existing today. They spoke 10 languages. They knew all sorts of things, well-read. Watch Mark Dice, say, to see the intelligence of the average American, right?
The average intelligence of the average American has increased 100-fold.
No, it's actually decreased. No. The knowledge available to them has increased hundreds of fold, but the intelligence, you know what is today? Independence Day, right?
Yeah.
Go out and ask people what today is. They're going to tell you 4th of July. You say, what does that mean? They don't know.
That doesn't have anything to do with intelligence.
Oh, sure it does. No, people don't even know what today is. They don't even know what they celebrate. They don't know anything. They don't know anything at all.
It's not intelligence, right? So intelligence, IQ, right? That's what I'm talking about. That's your crystal intelligence. That's your ability to subsume information.
Yes, but you're telling me that they never learned what the 4th of July was in their entire history, or they just forget it?
Or they just...
Well, okay. Yeah. Anyways, so we're basically out of time. So what I'm saying is that, again, the Bible talks about creation out of nothing, right? God created the world. He created man in his own image. That is why man is special. Evolution says man just evolved from nothingness. Everything out of nothing without a God, right? You say with a God, that's fine. So, but still, that man created from the primordial soup, right? That there is no significant difference between man and ape or man and ant in terms of morality and all the other things. I'm saying no, man is special. God made man from his own image. He made him specifically by himself. And from there it goes. And that's why I think it's incompatible with evolution. The gospel is incompatible with evolution. I'm not saying that God cannot exist with evolution. I'm saying the gospel specifically, the Christianity, the beliefs that Christianity holds cannot exist. That is, Jesus came down not to change the physical nature of man, his life, technology things, but he came down to change man, eternal destiny.
Okay.
Jesus loves you, Joe.
He does. So here's a statement, right? Today, Hardin speaks for an emergent school of Christian thinkers. They call themselves evolutionary creationists. They believe that God authored the emergence of life in humankind, but that evolution explains how this process unfolded. They accept what science has established. The Earth is billions of years old. That all species, including ours, have evolved from other species. Hardin understands why many Christians recoil from evolution. But to believe in young Earth, he says, is to have to reject so much science that you can't do research in related fields. Intelligent design tries to be more sophisticated, but you can't build science around it because it makes no testable predictions. To learn the works in science, Hardin says you have to follow its rules. Those rules are limited. They govern laboratories, not love. They're spectacularly successful. One of the rules is called methodological naturalism. At a Faith Angle forum last month, Hardin explained what this means. In science, you can't make supernatural claims. That's because supernatural causes aren't repeatable. You can believe in God that parted the Red Sea, but you can't test the process experimentally or use to predict the behavior of bodies of water. That doesn't mean science explains everything. Hardin distinguishes methodological naturalism from metaphysical naturalism, which denies the existence of the supernatural. The two ideas are often confused. Hardin wants the differences to clarify and calm evangelicals' anxiety about the scope of science. He wants Christians to understand that mainstream science is theologically safe. And he states that while maintaining that it follows a divine plan, that God created the world with the intention that he would be here and that he would one day be capable of interacting with him. Right? So, and Proverbs 16, the lot is cast into the lap, but is every decision from the Lord. Each natural event seems random, but overall pattern advances a purpose. So, based on that, and what I've explained here about how evolution is a scientific fact, and that through all of these, and the greatest of the greats, William Lane Craig, when it comes to apologetics, and probably one of the finest analytical philosophers and Christian teachers, seems to agree that anyone who makes the logical mistake of saying that evolution doesn't exist or that it's against Christianity really has to take a hard look at what they're doing with the Bible. If they're going to be literalists, then they have to be literalists with everything, because the story of Genesis is not a literal interpretation. It is a Jungian manuscript for how humans came into this world. And anything other than that, objective reality, then you're moving into denying an entire humanity, right? Because evolution does exist. We see evolution every day.
Again, this goes back. So anybody that's going to take issue with that, in our first round of the debate, we talked about macro versus micro. There is no evidence whatsoever of macro evolution. Nobody denies microevolution. Yes, there are changes within species, but there is zero evidence of changes between species. There is no links. There's nothing. Now, if you're going to say the Bible is not literal, why would you take the gospel as literal?
I don't take.
Why would the gospel?
I don't take the gospel as an absolute literal.
Okay, but you said you believe in the Christian worldview, right? What do you mean? Well, actually, I should say, what do you mean by Christian? When you say a Christian, what do you believe?
So all it takes to be a Christian is that you believe that Jesus Christ died for our sins, right? That's it. Jesus Christ died for the sins of a omnipotent, omnipresent being that lives outside the universe, that is a moral lawgiver and a creator.
You take all that literally? Seems like figurative to me. I'm not actually serious. Obviously, I take it literally, but it's much more than that to be a Christian. Christianity is the gospel. I mean, that is the core, right? That Jesus came down as a man, that God came down as a man and died and was born again. Raised again, sorry.
So you believe in the duality of Jesus Christ?
No, the Trinity of Jesus Christ.
No, the duality of Jesus Christ, not the Trinity.
No, the hyperstatic union, that God is 100% man, 100% God.
Okay, yeah. So that's such a small frame of Christianity that it what that
is Christianity. No, I mean that's an absolute necessity.
No.
Well, who was Jesus then? Who was Jesus?
Well, from a Davidic and a Gnostic statement, Jesus Christ was the Word of God that came down to reset the demiurge. From a Christian perspective, Jesus Christ is the Son of God who came down as God to die on the cross, but he's not God. He is God, but he's not God, right? So that's why there's the Godhead, the Trinity. Right? And
three gods in one, though. One God in three persons, three distinct beings that God represents himself. Now, to say, yes, I realize that, three people, one person doesn't make any sense, but no, this is because you're talking about a transcendent being that is so much more complicated than humans that we can't even understand what that means. There's all kinds of analogies people make, but none of them really hit on what it actually means. But
right, but what I'm saying is that like your view of Jesus Christ as both man and God, the dual nature of Jesus Christ, that's not something that's agreed upon by most Christians.
Well, it actually is. And it was required because you had to have a man, you had to have a human sacrificed, right? Not a human sacrifice, but it's the lamb, right? They sacrificed lambs for thousands of years. None of them actually did anything. They just said, okay, until this time comes when I'm going to have the lamb of God. right?
No, Jesus Christ was wholly divine. He was not man at all. He was on this earth to give himself up, but he was not man.
Was not he born of a virgin, of the woman's seed? Seed of the woman. That's what it says. That was the prophecy. Seed of the woman.
Right.
It doesn't say just simply out of the woman or something like that. I don't know what they would say. It says seed of the woman, right?
So here we go. So he was God before he was born in the flesh. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. John 1:1. After his human birth, he continued to be God on earth. Jesus forgave sins. Mark 2:5-7. Something only God can do. He can divinity. John 8:50.
Okay, but none of that disputes what I'm saying. I'm saying
yes, it does.
He was God and he was man at the same time.
Cannot have them both.
Are you saying God has limits?
I'm saying that Jesus Christ was God. He was not man.
And he's limited in what he can do.
No, I'm saying that there's no reason to believe that Jesus Christ had a dual nature.
Well, it says it in the Bible. Again, seed of the woman, that God became man, dwelt in the flesh, right? So he took on human form. He had to eat. He had to drink, right? When he's tempted in the desert, he was hungry. These are not attributes of God. These are attributes of man only, right?
Right. No. So,
yes, these are. God does not get hungry. God does not thirst. Jesus thirst. Jesus was hungry.
That's God in a body, but that's still Jesus Christ being wholly divine and wholly God. You have to have this distinction that he's not a dual-natured being, right?
No, he didn't.
Why would he be just not fully God?
Well, in the beginning, there was God created man, and he fell, right? He killed a lamb, the blood. So you needed a sacrifice, but a simple animal sacrifice didn't. That was not part of the plan, right? It talks about the plan from the beginning. With a lot of time to go into that, but you needed a specific sacrifice, that God was going to sacrifice his son himself, right? Again, the Trinity, 3 in 1. Okay, so we're out of time. We went past our allotted time frame.
Finish this because I'm gonna. So you said that there's no instances of macroevolution, right? So I just want everybody.
Yes,
to know.
because it says, and it says it in the New Testament as well, that man begat man, plant begat after its own kind, right? Plants begat after their own kind. I mean, it says that a number of times in the Bible. I left my thing in the other room, but it says it in Genesis, and it also says it later on.
All right, so there's over 29 evidences for macroevolution, the scientific case for common descent, right? That's a solid book that explains macroevolution, and it gives you 29 different molecular vestiges, ontogeny and developmental biology, mammalian ear bones, reptilian jaws, pharyngeal pouches, brachial arches, snake embryos with legs, embryonic human tail, marsupial eggshell, and carnacle. Right, those are all functions of macroevolution. So,
first of all, I'd say no, they're mostly hoaxes and frauds. But even if I said, okay, you found one or two beings, Darwin himself said there would be millions of species, because you're talking about millions of years of these transitional creatures, right? There has to be millions and millions of them. You cannot have one, boom, you've got an ape, you've got a man, you've got like one creature in between. The entire evolutionary process relies on time, that these changes happen over long, long periods of time. Well, guess what? Animals don't live 10 million years, right? How do you get these creatures to go from an ape to a human when you have no evidence, you have no evidence of anything in between? I just mentioned that all of them are hoaxes. You've got a Piltdown Man, big hoax. I'm just searching. There would not be evolutionary frauds if there was evidence in and of itself, right? If evolution had proof, why would you make all these frauds? Doesn't make any sense. It just disproves itself.
That's completely wrong. People try to people try to make stuff up all the time. People make stuff up in religion, like I don't know, like
Yeah, but that's because they're false, right? I would say most religions are false. I'd say there's one true religion, clearly.
no, I'm saying
But I'm not going to make things up. I'm not going to say, I don't have any evidence for my beliefs, and so let me just make it up, and then I'll print it on the front page, so that I can get my government grant or something like that. Right?
So,
you can talk about what's his name? After Darwin wrote his book, The Outcomes of his brother. I'll talk about that in my other debate. But the outcomes from Hegel.
Yeah.
But
so
social Darwinism.
So here's that's something completely different. Because I'm a social Darwinist, and so are you if you believe in economics, right? So let's talk about it. So,
No, I don't believe in survival of the fittest. I don't think that if I'm stronger than you, I should be able to kill you, because that is the outcome of Darwinism, right? Survival of the fittest. But
no, it's not.
I'm sure it is.
No,
it
it's
is.
not.
It's survival of the fittest.
You do not understand.
Why?
Social
Tell me.
Darwinism.
Okay, let me. We only have 4 minutes, but back to the idea of, again, Christianity. Why is man special? Why is it wrong for me to kill you if you're no significant difference than an ape? I can kill an ape.
I've already.
You didn't explain it at all. You gave no reason for me to believe that.
I said God created man. I gave you that.
You didn't. You said God created
a mechanism,
some little immortal organism that he eventually allowed to turn evolutionary transitions into man.
No, this is something.
Okay, you can say guided. Okay, so we'll say God created a little one-celled animal, that he created this process that eventually turned into man. But why? Again, you even said that that man is advancing to a higher species as well.
Yes.
So, okay, so then it doesn't make any sense. Christianity, Jesus dying for us, doesn't make any sense to me.
How does it not? That makes no sense. How does it not?
Well, I just said, why did Jesus die? Jesus died for man. He didn't die for the higher level species of man. He died for man. He didn't die for apes. He didn't die for lions. He died to cover the sins of the world. That's what the ancient Judaic text.
If we move forward, we're not changing. We're still God.
We are okay. Oh, hold on. We are God.
What the
fuck? Skin, yank it. That's his skin. Yank it.
Why did you?
Hard fast.
What are you doing?
There's only soapbox here.
That caused this.
We are not gods. There is a God. You are not him.
God damn it. What the fuck?
Okay, Joe has a issue there. I don't know what that is. But
Yeah, somebody came into my room bleeding.
something terrible
Yeah,
happened.
no, it's fine.
Oh.
Minor cut. So here's the thing. So God created.
So you said we are God.
No, what? I never said that. I said that God
That's what you said.
created man,
That's what you said.
and man has evolved and will continue to evolve until we go back to something that's good, right? So our goal is, as Jesus Christ has came along.
Do you have evidence that we're getting better?
We've had an evolutionary change where we have become better, where we've become smarter, more industrial, more advanced. Right? You can say that we haven't. I'm sure you can say that polymath.
Well, no, I'd say we have become advanced, but we've used those for evil purposes, right? That just makes us more evil. That's what I would say.
Well, the 21st century is the lowest level of crime and death in the world. So I find that
More people died in the 20th century by their own governments and through war than all of the other centuries combined through war.
right, but we've also had more people now than we ever have. So
We have the atomic bomb, we have bombs, we have airplanes to kill people. I mean, we have become efficient killing machines.
yeah, but we don't kill as much. So
We actually do kill. We kill much
no, we don't.
more.
We kill much less as per percentage of population. So just because we have the greatest amount of people and people die doesn't mean that somehow means that we kill more people in general. Because if we took it by percentage rate of human population to death, the 21st century has been the greatest thing that's ever happened. Lowest crime rates, lowest abject.
Well, in technological advancement, but not in terms of those things. And let's remember what where Mao's ideas came from: perfecting the man, right? Turning man into a godlike creature. We're going to re-educate him until he's perfect, and he'll no longer want to kill each other. And what do you get out of that? You get more death.
That has nothing to do with the statement that we're not evolved.
Okay, 5 seconds left. Thanks, Joe. Had fun.